Hey guys, this is the Dr. G Show. I'm glad you guys are here as you guys tune in off the live recording. Make sure that you guys like this and share this with your friends and family. And also, don't hesitate to post questions that you come up with, even if we're off the air. I try to answer all those. So, this is episode 87. And we were going to do my genetics, but I haven't heard anything yet. Hey Brianna, hey Amy, hey Ashley. But I checked online to see if my genetics was in, and it's still processing. It is like 6 weeks now. It is still processing. Hi Amy. Hey Jan. I'm glad you guys are joining me tonight. So, as you noticed maybe on my Facebook feed, I put out that we're doing a little something different today. Because apparently they are never getting my genetics in. My genetics, so you have 20 to 25,000 genes. If it's taking like almost 2 months to get my genetics back, pretty sure I probably have like 30,000 genes. I bet you I have more genes than anyone else. Or there's probably alien genes in there or something. So, no genes yet. No genetics. So we're going to change things up and we're going to talk about things that mess up genetics. So we talked a little bit about this before, but we're going to talk about maybe a few other things about this. But we want to talk about reading labels. One of the things that I do that I love that you guys interact with is I post labels that I find in the stores or at restaurants, and I'll take a picture of it and I'll say, what do you guys think of this? Is it good, bad, toxic? What do you guys think? The other thing that we need to do as we go forward with that too, as we post those things on Facebook, is to say what's a healthier alternative. So that would be good. So very solution oriented. People get kind of overwhelmed with how toxic everything is. What's really messed up is that most people don't know that most of the world bans these things that we consume every day. And that's because they're horribly toxic and there's a health price to pay for that. So if you're a socialized country and you cannot turn down people because they're sick, don't make people sick. Whereas in America, if you lose, we're the only country where you can lose your entire savings, you can lose your house, everything you've worked for, because you get sick from the chemicals that we allow through the FDA. So that's pretty messed up. So we want to kind of empower you to identify those chemicals and understand why they're so toxic, and then figure out ways we can kind of replace those with healthier alternatives. Which, 10, 15 years ago when we were doing this, it was very hard because there wasn't a lot of alternative things for you to do. But now it's endless, which is wonderful. So, as we've talked about before when we talk about reading labels, I mean, I think it's the very first live feed that we did for this show, back when me and Holly were doing the show together. We actually pulled food from the freezer at the big clinic, and I read the ingredients and kind of talked about what those were, which was pretty messed up because there was a lot of bad stuff and stuff that sounded healthy. I think it was Evolve was actually pretty decent. Amy's was pretty decent, but those ones that had health claims on them, they were horribly toxic. So, the very first ingredient that we want to talk about is coal tar, right? So, cancer was 1 in 8,000 like 100 years ago. Adam and Eve to about 1970 is how long cancer took to become a top 10 killer in the United States. So, from the dawn of man to 1972, that's how long it takes to make it to the top 10 in America. And then fast forward 40 years. So, right, that amount of time. And then fast forward 40 years, and it becomes 1 out of every 2 Americans is expected to get cancer in a lifetime, and younger ages. My generation, the best generation, Generation X, we are not supposed to outlive our parents. We're supposed to be the first generation not to outlive our parents. We have an expectation of losing up to 28 years off our lifespan. And it's because of things like early heart disease, early cancer, early diabetes. We are dying and getting sicker at younger and younger ages. Hey, as you guys join this, please share this with your friends and family on your feed and like it as we go. Post questions as we go through this too. So if there's anything you don't understand, post the questions. So then the World Health Organization said in 2010 the Americans, if they don't change what they're eating, drinking, breathing, rubbing on their skin, the expectation is everybody born after 2010 should get cancer in their lifetime, and of course younger ages. So we couldn't study cancer in a lab because we couldn't create cancer in a lab. So we're never going to find this cure unless we can cause cancer in a lab. And the University of Japan did that, I believe, in 1972 when they used coal tar. And coal tar is the waste product of petroleum manufacturing, and all of a sudden we could create cancer, so we could study cancer. So the rest of the world says, let's ban that. America says, hey, it's dirt cheap. Let's use that for everything, right? So in 1960, we had this new slogan, better living through science and technology. We're going to take everything that God made and we're going to just make it all better in America. But what we really meant is we're going to make it more profitable by making petroleum waste products into all these things we eat, drink, breathe, rub on our skin, and wear, which is crazy. So then knowing that, why does everybody I know have cancer? Why does everybody in the church have cancer? Why does every other person I know have cancer? Well, are they just causing it? And could they stop causing it if they knew the things that were causing it and could eliminate those things? So, something like vanillin. Vanillin is one of the, of course, it doesn't sound like vanilla, right? And that's because vanillin is a synthetic version of vanilla. Now, if I take vanillin, so if you go to the store and you get vanilla, right, real vanilla, it costs like say $2.50. But if you get vanillin or artificial vanilla, maybe $1.25. But they make 1,200 times more profit if they make the vanilla from petroleum products taste like vanilla. So, we're the land of more profit. Awesome, right? So now we consume petroleum flavors, petroleum colors, which we'll talk about even more of how that makes people dumber and fatter. Okay? Another derivative, which I used to love, is paraffin. Paraffin is a derivative of petroleum. And we put our hands in there, but it's a messed up thing because you're putting your hands in petroleum and then absorbing. So same thing with paraffin waxed paper cups, paraffin waxed parchment paper. So you want to stay away from that. Which, by the way, Bruce Gardner, he has a question. Doctor, you give medical discounts on patient visits. Well, we see patients from all around the world, and we just charge a reasonable rate. So we charge $80 an hour, and we give you a whole hour every visit. So, and then most of our labs we charge like 90% less. So stuff that might cost $100 through your insurance, and you may pay 50% of that or pay all of it, we charge like $10 for that. So if I get discounts, I pass those through to the patients. Not some docs are like, hey, more profit, but I think it's better to make things affordable. So I hope that answers your question. So we already charge a really reasonable rate, and so a lot of companies, they charge this high amount and then discount, have these little cells, but that means that most people get kind of screwed with that. So yeah, Amy's sweet, right? Best $80 you ever spend, which is crazy because we have patients that have been treated for like 20 years, and then 6 weeks later they're just kind of like, no more Crohn's, no more ulcerative colitis, no more eczema, no more psoriasis. So yeah, it's a hell of a lot better money spent for sure. Great investment in your health. So it's awesome to be symptom free and normal, or feeling normal, right? That's great. So we said paraffin or waxed paper. So how do we solve that? Well, don't do paraffin. You can get non-waxed parchment paper, especially if you use aluminum cooking sheets. You don't want to use aluminum because it's neurotoxic, but it's kind of hard to find tin. Is it tin? Is it real metal? What the hell is it? So just put non-waxed parchment paper, right? So you can make some paleo cookies, some gluten-free cookies, heat up some, purple French fries, whatever you want to do, right? Just put parchment paper down on that cookie sheet or that tin, and then put your food on top there. In old school, you actually wrap it up and wrinkle it, and you make a little bag, and then you put your herbs and your onions and garlic in there, and it just infuses the food with that. So another great thing to do. But if you used wax parchment paper, well, now you're infusing it with petroleum products and dramatically increasing your risk of things like cancer. So there's petroleum jelly, which I grew up on. Some of you guys probably, how many of you guys have used petroleum jelly, like grew up on petroleum jelly? It's like everybody. Okay, so Amy, she says she puts her leftovers in foil and then reheats them in the oven. But, so not using the microwave. That's great, right? But aluminum foil is aluminum. So you're back to cooking in aluminum, which is neurotoxic, which is why we try to get away from aluminum pans and all that. So parchment paper. And parchment paper, you really can kind of roll it up and do all that. So you can use it just like aluminum foil. Maybe you can put a paper clip on there or something like that if it's not holding right. But usually if you roll it up, it works really well. So petroleum jelly we all grew up with. So lanolin, that would be a nice alternative. Lanolin is the oil from sheep's wool, non-toxic. Where petroleum jelly is endocrine toxic and cancer causing. Kim, hey Kim, she has a question about baking stones. Baking stones are awesome. Those are great. So don't worry about those. That's one you don't have to use the parchment paper with. And they clean up so easily with that little scraper, just like the iron skillets do. Stones are great. Very great. And then, with lanolin, it's really, really thick. So we use that with our babies for like barrier creams and stuff like that. But it's super thick. So cut it with some coconut oil, almond oil, whatever you want. And get the consistency that you want for a barrier cream. And of course, once at a certain point, you don't really use much of it all ever. And then you also see where a lot of products will say no petroleum. We have no petroleum in our products, but they'll have a word called petrolatum. Guess what petrolatum is? It's petroleum. So it's just another name for petroleum. So they're screwing us and our family and making us sicker by saying we don't have any petroleum, but we really have petroleum. We don't have the word petroleum, we have the word petrolatum. So another way that we're kind of causing cancer, messing up hormones, and screwing people with that. The other thing is mineral oil, which we call baby oil. And so like massage therapists that use baby oil, it's horribly toxic. Horribly, horribly toxic. Anything that you rub on that skin, within 10 minutes, 90% of that's probably going to absorb into there. And once it's in there, it's in every single cell in your body within 28 seconds. Or not every single organ within 28 seconds. So you have 400 liters of blood that's just pumping through every organ, and very quickly it's brain, liver, kidneys, all that. So don't use mineral oil. So what's an alternative? So what do you guys like? As we talk about these things, what are the things that you guys have replaced us with? Because I know a lot of you guys have already replaced them. We talked about coconut oil, obviously. That's an easy one. I know a lot of people like that, especially for like romantic encounters. Instead of the synthetic chemical ones that people use for love making, the sexy sex. So people really like that. Just probably have a different jar. Probably don't use the same one for the kitchen, that kind of thing. Lanolin, and then simple oils like what's the one from the trees where the goats are in the trees? Argan oil. Argan oil with a little bit of frankincense is a wonderful anti-aging one. So Kim, yeah, sweet almond oil. That's awesome. It even sounds super nice, right? So the sweet almond oil, that's a good simple one to replace with. If you get cups or paper plates, try to get the non-waxed ones. Don't get the plastic ones. And then the other thing we kind of touched on is coal tar, right? That where we make artificial colors, artificial dyes. So if you don't know this, coal tar became permanent dye. So these dye companies that would dye clothes, they would actually figure out how to take coal tar and make permanent dye. So we used to use colors from foods, so turmeric would make your shirt orange, and flowers would make them blue and red and yellow, those kind of things. Amy says she loves apricot oil to replace lotion. It's very light and it's not greasy. Not greasy is a big one for a lot of people too. Some people with coconut oil, man, they'll absorb that in, but if they don't, it might be a little greasy. So that's where something like a little apricot oil, something like that would be even more beneficial. So I have a book from 1910. It's from the McPherson School District, and it actually talks about all this stuff from 1910, warning children that these artificial colors, artificial flavors are toxic, absolutely toxic. Ashley, so what kind of plates are safe to eat on? They have those recycled ones that tend to be a little bit better. You don't want the ones with the little wax on there. There's ones that I get that are like these eco ones that once in a while we use those. Often I just bring plates, so I know it's like sometimes they might break, but we actually got a big bunch from like I don't know, is it 16 plates or something like that from like Walmart, and they were just these thin kind of white glass plates, and so we take those places, and that way if they break, who gives a crap? We got a whole bunch more. It's from Walmart, so who cares? Paper plates and stuff, you don't want the wax one, you don't want the ones with colors on there, so the non-colored ones. If you guys have some very specific answers, I know what I buy, but I don't know what it's called. But I just make sure I don't get any colors, any wax on there at all. And so the plate might absorb stuff, but at least you're not dying, right? So killing your family, so it should be pretty good. So, back to colors. So in 2000, back in the 1990s. In the 1990s, we really started coloring stuff with artificial colors from petroleum waste products. So if you go buy some dill pickles, some Vlasics, right? Look on the ingredients. It used to be like 3 ingredients. I think it was like salt, maybe vinegar, and pickle or cucumber or something like that. Like it's very simple to make your own cucumbers or your own pickles, right? But now they have polysorbate, which is plastic, or they'll have yellow food coloring, and people are kind of shocked sometimes that there's yellow food coloring, but that's petroleum. There's a study in a journal in 2010, and what they did was they gave a pregnant mom artificial colors and then documented what happened with the babies, animal, not human. But they could actually replicate learning disorders, ADD, ADHD, and attentive disorder in these animals by feeding the pregnant mom those colors, and let alone feeding them the colors. But what they found, so before there was ADID and ADHD, there was ADD. Before there was ADD, it was called minimal brain dysfunction disease, which I actually have a textbook of. And what that meant was your brain is kind of like minimally functioning, because why the hell can you not just sit there like a normal person, right? So we call it an attentive disorder or hyperactive disorder. We can replicate that by feeding those colors to animals, and we also noticed that it works with children. So that journal said that yellow food coloring that's artificial decreased brain neurite growth or brain nerve growth by 3,000%. 3,000%. That's all the artificial color that's in cereals and crackers and toys and candy and all those things, right? Then blue decreased it by 5,000%, and then green was by 8,000%. And so we can literally see cause and effect by feeding them the colors. What's also interesting is if you go back to about the 1960s, the American IQ had always been going up. And then 1964, it plummeted. The American IQ dropped suddenly, and it has never recovered. And they said it was, so this group of scientists got together and they went to this U.S. Senate and testified. And they said it's the colors and the flavors that we're making from coal tar that interfere with brain function and is causing these learning disorders and for our IQ to drop. And of course our FDA, or say Senate, said, it's all fine, don't worry about it, right? The rest of the world bans this stuff. So if you look at the ad that we have on the Facebook page, there's actually a little label there, and there's a couple more that I have in the usual lecture that I do for this. And in there, it warns them that those colors cause ADHD or learning disorders or behavioral problems in children. So when you look at other countries, you'll see often where these studies come out and they're like, oh, there's no ADD in France or Italy or Spain or Portugal or Sweden. Well, why the hell is the rest of the world not having these ADD kids, but America is? And in fact, it's not just children. It's misdiagnosed in adults or underdiagnosed in adults. And now, the NPR Science Friday, they said that ADD medicines in middle-aged women have went up 700% in the last 5 years. So we're not only messing up children, but we're messing up adults at alarming rates. So now all of a sudden you have adults that can't sit still, can't think, can't function. And they end up on meth, basically. Some amphetamines, which is nice, right? That's great. That seems like a great idea. Why not? America. But when these other countries ban this stuff, they ban it because it knowingly causes those things. So they might use red pigments from a beetle to make something red. I always talk about, the example, if you get a strawberry shake from McDonald's, what makes it taste like a strawberry in America? Well, it's 44 chemicals, mostly from petroleum, that make it taste like a strawberry. But if you get a strawberry shake from McDonald's, same company, same shake, anywhere else in the world, it's a strawberry that makes it taste like a strawberry. So that's because they know that these colors cause ADHD. So stop feeding people these colors to cure ADHD, right? Stop causing the problem. That's your cheapest, easiest solution ever. So 3,000%, 5,000%, that caramel food coloring, the vanilla, the artificial butter flavor, artificial fruit flavors, all that nonsense dramatically decreases brain function. And what's really interesting too is that most American processed food, like most of the stuff that we typically eat, can shrink your brain 4 to 10%. So not only are we making Americans dumber, but we are actually shrinking the brain. The average obese American has an 8% smaller brain than someone that's not obese, not overweight. Overweight's about 4%. So that's not good. But we know what causes it. We just don't do anything about that. But you can. So the other thing is like blue food coloring. Blue number 1 causes kidney tumors. Blue number 2, which is indigo carmine, causes brain tumors. Green 3 is what causes tumors in the bladder and testes. Red food coloring causes thyroid tumors. So that's great. So like maraschino cherries, baked goods, candy, red velvet cake, that artificial red causes thyroid cancers, thyroid tumors, thyroid cysts, thyroid dysfunction. So should we put it in there? Hell yeah, it's profitable. We want to make profit. So what if we have sudden epidemics of thyroid disease in patients? Who gives a crap? You get more medication. My stock price goes up. Awesome, right? Not so good. All right, so Amy says all of those colors are what helped me remember that candy is not worth eating. Yeah, I know. and it's really interesting because it really was post-90s that we seen the big change of all these new colors being added to things that never had colors. The same thing with sugar. Sugar's more addicting than crack cocaine. So they started putting sugar in things that never had it because it made profits go up. So it's great for a few. The other thing is those colors are in things like cosmetics and medications. So while if you make a medication red or blue, they will sell more. People will think it works better, but it actually is neurotoxic to that person. Red number 40 causes immune system tumors, allergic reactions, hyperactive children. That's a pretty common, or I think a lot of people have known that now. Tetrazine, which is yellow, causes hyperactivity disorder and behavioral disorders. Yellow is a big one that's just straight that. But yellow number 6 causes adrenal tumors, severe hyperactivity in children and adults. And, most of these are in just this whole array of just processed foods. So some people get overwhelmed. They're like, well, what the hell do I eat? Well, eat real food. Eat stuff that's colored by God, right? Eat the rainbow, purple, red, yellow, orange. That's from nature, not Skittles, not M&Ms. Even what's funny is something like the way that our neurochemistry works and the expectation of flavor and taste and food and sweetness, we've changed and we confuse the brain, which then makes us want to eat more because we haven't satisfied that kind of memory of what that should taste like. So we have artificial colors and flavors that change how we expect something to taste, and that's why they add yellow food coloring to pickles now, because it makes it look a little bit different, more appetizing, more worthy of buying, because there's a higher expectation. So there's this little quote from The Psychology of Flavor, and it says, how can you expect your kid to enjoy a fresh strawberry when he's used to is the pink goo inside of Pop-Tarts and the fizzy sweetness of a strawberry soda? So that the part of your brain, the limbic system in there, that takes taste and sight and smell and connects it with memory, all of a sudden we're kind of bastardizing what our expectations of food should be. So kids that grow up eating Pop-Tarts will never think a strawberry tastes sweet. But if you go back before we imported sugar, back before we colored things, back in the 1700s, you have this book called Robinson Crusoe, and I was reading that to my daughters, and in there he says, I miss the sweet foods of my homeland. And what sweet foods was he talking about? Carrots and peas. But no American's going to be like, oh, carrots and peas, that's definitely sweet. No, because we have a totally different expectation of what is really sweet. And so it changes what we eat, what we consume, and really what's the satiety or the satisfaction that we achieve. And so people tend to overeat if things are artificial colored, artificial flavored. It changes that neurochemistry. Other things that are made from coal tar, artificial sweeteners. Which artificial sweeteners are back to that thing where we're changing the neurochemistry expectation from the brain to the mouth to the stomach to the hormones. And so something like saccharin, which is sweet and low, poison. Sucralose, which is Splenda, poison. Aspartame, neotame, sulfatame, poison. Those are all formaldehyde. They convert back to formaldehyde at 87 degrees. So the reason we see big problems with that, let alone the toxicity part, is that your level of sweetness, so the sweetness kind of sensation for, say, peas and carrots, is this. Fruit in here, right? Berries maybe here. Stevia here. Aspartame here. So what happens is people will eat 0-calorie food and get fatter. And every few years they'll come out with a study that shows this, that if you eat sugar-free or diet food, you will get fatter than if you ate the damn sugar in the first place, right? So, but you also get a bonus autoimmune disease like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. So, it's kind of like a 2-for-1. I get fatter and I get autoimmune. That's a win-win. All right, so Ashley, which I'm glad you're on here, are waffle makers okay to use? Laugh out loud. like a griddle. Okay, so most waffle makers, your Panini grill, your George Foreman grill, are Teflon. And Teflon actually absorbs into your food. It actually diffuses through the air when you cook with Teflon, and people get what's called Teflon flu. But they did this study where they took 100 people at random and did blood tests on them, and they all had Teflon in their blood. So, we're eating Teflon. So, what's a safer way? Well, I got a ceramic waffle maker once. So there are ceramic waffle makers, which that's safe. There is cast iron ones, the old school ones, but man, those are bullcrap. I don't know how to use that very well. I guess if you got to use it very well, you'd be great with it, but I haven't figured that out quite yet. But you put it over the burner, and then it flips over, so I don't know. So, ceramic. Try ceramic. Just don't get ceramic that has any kind of eco coating, green coating, anything that says anodized, because I had to finally do that research to figure out what the hell are they doing. And the anodized is aluminum. So you're back to eating aluminum. So that's awesome. They should make like a glass, well, maybe not a glass one, I guess. They need to make something a little bit better. But ceramic works. Porcelain one would be great. Someone should take a porcelain class and make one of those and then start selling those. Amy says, I'm afraid to try stevia, even though it's natural, because I'm afraid it will increase my sugar tolerance. Exactly. So that was one of those things that I was like, I theorized in the beginning when stevia was coming out. I was just like, it's tricking the body because it's like, I don't know, 300% more sweeter than sugar. So people get fatter. Sure enough, that's what happened. So a little bit of stevia once in a while is fine, like a kombucha light soda or something. But people that use it just to replace sugar, not so good. They're better off using maple syrup or honey. Those are your better ones. Don't use agave. Agave is processed just like high fructose corn syrup. So people then launched on that, but it's the same thing. So then you get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and then steatohepatitis, and it's a whole mess. So, organic sugar cane, that's going to be better for probably making other people's stuff. It's your best of the worst. And push comes to shove, it's not the worst thing in the world if you're doing lots of really good other stuff. So, an organic cane sugar would be fine. Half of America's sugar comes from sugar cane from Florida. The other half comes from the Dakotas, from beets. So, genetically modified beets. So organic, what you want. The nice thing about the brown too is that you're actually getting B vitamins, manganese, magnesium, some good stuff in there too. Which is why when they take molasses is all the brown stuff, kind of like bran to rice. So we take brown rice, take all the brown stuff off. That's all the nutrient-dense stuff, and then we have sugar. Well, we do the same thing with cane sugar. Here's this brown sugar. Take all the brown, which is all the nutrition, and then we just have white sugar. So, gotta kill whiting. Get rid of that white sugar. So, with stevia is just a plant. And the leaves are sweet. They dry it, grind it up, make it a powder. It's all right. You do want, like, green stevia. Truvia, it actually has things like Rev A in there, which is derived from corn, or erythritol, which is from genetically modified corn. Pure Via, which it has freaking cellulose powder, which I think is why it floats. That's from sawdust. Isomaltose, that's probably from wheat or corn. Dextrose is from wheat or corn. The Revianas. So, if you get stevia only. Don't get anything that's plus because it's a bunch of crap. So, once in a while, that's fine. I think the only time I get stevia is when I drink those kombucha live sodas. Which, by the way, I'm going to post those on Facebook, but I was at the health food store, and they have some new kombuchas. If you guys have tried these, let us know. But there was like a lavender passion one, there's a coffee one, there's a watermelon one that's supposed to be just delightful, like they ran out of it when we tried to get some. What's the other? Oh, there's tantric turmeric, which may be really good or maybe gross. I'm not sure which one, but I haven't tried that one yet. But if you've tried some of those new, I think they're Synergy ones, let us know. Let us know what you think. Now, those have real sugar, so those are non-toxic. And the acid binds to the sugar just like fiber does to make fructooligosaccharides, which then feeds your gut bacteria, makes more B vitamins, and then you're healthier and happier and everything. What else can we make from petroleum waste products? Oh, I got an idea. What if we took benzene and we put it in food? So using malic acid, ascorbic acid, like vitamin C, we could preserve stuff with that. But what if we could take the flammable part of gasoline and actually preserve food with that? We could make more money. That seems like a great idea. America, right? What could go wrong with putting benzene in the food, in the drinks? So if you get Dr. Pepper, you'll notice sodium benzoate on there. Anything that says benz means benzene, which is the flammable part of gasoline. So the only good Benz is a Mercedes-Benz, which I love Mercedes-Benz. But Lexus is cheaper to work on. So benzoic acid, sodium benzoate. Now propylgalate, it's benzene also, even though it doesn't have the benz in there. And then we could take benzene and we could make toluene, which is paint thinner. So if you go to the hardware store, you can get toluene and you can strip all the paint off your house and then repaint your house. If you go to the grocery store, you can get butyl hydrotoluene, which is little bits of paint thinner that we can use to preserve our food. Because what could go wrong with putting a little paint thinner in your food? I mean, I think children need a little bit of paint thinner. I think that's what I read. Children need a little bit of paint thinner. It's all fine. Don't even worry about all that. That's crazy. All right. So how do we make it? So if we take crude oil, we can dry benzene out of there. That's the flammable part. Then we can make toluene. Then we make benzoic acid. And it causes cancer. And then we have a country that with a lot of cancer. There's probably no connection. Don't even worry about that. All right, so Amy says, on that note, GT's kombucha. GT, that's the other one. I think that's made with love. The sugar gets absorbed during the fermentation process. Yeah, that's true. So it should take the fermentation, takes the sugar and makes acid, like 20 different beneficial acids. But what about the sugar from the flavoring, which is juice? Yeah, the juice should be then... So, nobody likes sour stuff, so they take sour stuff, they add some juice to it. But really, the acid should bind to the sugars, just like fiber does, and then 80% of that should then go to feed your gut bacteria. So it should be a fine. Don't worry about that. It should be perfectly fine. And then Ashley says, if you have SIBO, which is small bowel intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is kombucha maybe not the best beverage for you? Yes and no. So definitely it should be good for you. So if you have small bowel bacterial overgrowth, is overgrowth of good bacteria, is overgrowth of bad bacteria? But there's 20 beneficial acids in there which will then kind of calm down and regulate what bacteria can and cannot live in your gut. So that's a great question. Because you will have some people in the beginning where kombucha, man, they'll get gas and they'll get diarrhea. Their bowels will be a little funky. So should I do it? Yeah, you probably should, because something's a little messed up, because it shouldn't cause those problems, right? So what they have is a dysbiosis. So they have too many bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria. But you have 750 different species of bacteria. You have 75% of your gut immune system is the good bacteria that's in your gut. So fermenting things and consuming them is great. But I'll tell you, when I first started eating kimchi, which at the health food stores, they got some really good. They got daikon kimchi now, which is great. No toxic crap like MSG in there. But it would get that first time I consumed it, man, I had the worst diarrhea ever. Now I don't. So once my body was just like, kind of like, has this little fight, figures out what's supposed to be there, what's not supposed to be there, then it kind of normalizes and you're all good. So same thing with kombucha or kefir or kefir, not dairy kefir, but non-dairy kefir, or kefir water, or fermented foods. Then you might have some stuff in the beginning, but really it should normalize. When you look at things like leaky gut and SIBO, the way you fix those is not by taking a bunch of supplements forever. It is about how do you restore normal bacteria. Well, restore normal bacteria. You do that through fermented foods. So it's probably worth a little bit of frustration in the beginning, but it should normalize. The other things you can do is you can do some like oregano oil if you have SIBO, or a few other things, but really do it under a natural medicine doctor kind of guidance of what you should do or shouldn't do when you're taking essential oils internally. But you can consume some of those things and they will actually kill off the overgrowth and then re-inoculate with the good. So kill off the overgrowth, re-inoculate, kill off the overgrowth, re-inoculate. Now you're supposed to do that all the time with things like basil and oregano and garlic and all these kind of things that should be a staple in our food. That's what kind of prevents overgrowth of bacteria for most people on the entire planet. But if we sterilize everything, then we end up with overgrowth of bacteria. Even overgrowth of good bacteria can be a problem. That's what, like H. pylori, when I used to lecture, and I did this 2.5-year postdoctoral diplomacy program where I'd lecture and teach other doctors and stuff, there was always that kind of confrontation of like, oh, H. pylori is the devil. No, it's supposed to be there. It is a normal, healthy bacteria. Clostridium difficile, which if you guys have ever worked in a hospital, it is one of the most toxic things ever. But when it's not overgrown and it's in balance, it's a good bacteria. It makes B12. It makes you healthy. It makes you happy. It makes you hormonally balanced. But if you kill off all its friends and cause an imbalance, then it goes crazy and makes a bunch of toxins. So, I hope that helps. That's a great question. What about sunscreen? Well, sunscreen uses oxybenzone. And we're back to benz, right? But what's interesting is there's a cancer map. I'll try to post that for you guys too. I love this one. But in the 1930s, cancer was very small. So again, say dawn of man, Adam and Eve, it was barely able to cause any skin cancer. Someone got a great idea. What if we took coal tar, that causes cancer, and we put it in lotions to absorb UV rays because the sun hates us? So, then cancer doubled. So then by the 1950s, we said, oh my God, what if we could put an even stronger benzene in there with an SPF of 8, sun protection factor of 8, which is the same as coconut oil, which is non-toxic, doesn't cause cancer. But that's crazy talk. We got to use benzene. So we use this paraamino benzene, which is actually banned now because it causes too much cancer, but not before quadruple cancer. So now cancer went from dawn of man here, just this tiny little amount, to whoop, whoop, like that. So obviously the sun's getting crazy, and then by the 1970s we said, let's put oxybenzone, high SPF, really high SPF. Let's put that in there. Then we could protect people from the evil sun that hates Americans, hates our freedom, right? Hates our freedom. So then we put a high SPF in there, which is oxybenzone, and then cancer goes through the roof. And then we obviously know that, I mean, it's not cancer-causing chemicals that causes cancer. It's the sun. It's the sun. But somehow those gingers in Ireland and Scotland, they survive. Not sure how that works, but pretty sure they should have been killed off a long time ago if the sun really hated white skin. But that's why I think it's higher in America, higher in the last 50 years, because it hates Americans. It's the jihadi sun. Jihadi sun! That's like an Asian, Muslim, sun terrorist. That seems kind of racist. I don't know about that. Hmm. What about some other stuff? 1,4-dioxane, which is used to make polysorbate 80, which is funny because if you go to environmentalworkinggroup.org, you look at polysorbate, it's fairly safe. It's a little bit of toxicity. I think it's a 3 or 4. But it's made from benzene, right? It's derived from benzene. And 1,4-dioxane is the immediate derivative, and that's formaldehyde. It's a slow formaldehyde releasing chemical. Quaternarium 15, formaldehyde. Was that hydantoin? Urea, bromopol, which we don't see that very often. But these are things that are in like nail polish, nail glue, eyelash glue, hair gel, hair smoothing products, baby shampoo. What could go wrong if you put it in baby shampoo, right? Body soap, body wash, colored cosmetics. So these are slow formaldehyde releasing chemicals that are made from petroleum waste products. And then we also have some estrogenic ones too, right? So we have estrogenic plastics. We talk about dairy's the devil because of all the estradiol that's in there, because it's 1,200-pound mom breastfeeding, it has a whole bunch of enzyme growth factor 1. But we also said that plastics play a big part in that too. So in those little recycled triangles, you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 3, 6, and 7 are the most toxic, right? So 3 is vinyl or polyvinyl. Which, by the way, it's super estrogenic, but on the EWG, it lists as like, it's not so bad. That's bad. And then plastic number 6 is polystyrene, which is from benzene. And then plastic number 7 is bisphenol, which is from benzene, right? But all of them are pretty much from there. I mean, number 1, which is kind of the more stable one, is polyethylene triphosphate, or triphthalate. But phthalates are one of the most toxic ones. That's also what is derived from plastic number 3. And then the same thing with plastic number 2, which is kind of the staple for plastics. That's a high density polyethylene. So that tends to be the safer of the toxic ones, but most of them mimic your hormones. So the 3, the 6, and the 7, and even probably the 1, are the ones that are going to leach into your food, into your lotions, into your shampoos, and then cause estrogenic changes for you. And what that means is your body doesn't know the difference between those estrogen chemicals and estrogen that you make. And not the weak estrogens like estrone and estril, but the really potent estradiol that changes women and girls into women. So then men go through female puberty and we get man boobs and we get large prostates, right? So for men, the number 1 elective surgery in the United States is male breast reduction surgery. 1 out of every 1,000 breast cancers are now guys. So Harvard came out and said that every man in America needs to get mammograms. We did it. So you can drink coffee out of your styrofoam. It's all good. Put that cologne on. You're all fine. Just get your man boobs checked. And then prostates are uteruses. So they're the remnant of the uterus. So that walnut-sized prostate is trying to grow back into the size of a pear, which is the size of a uterus, because we're converting men back into women with things like dairy and plastic. So it's a huge problem with that. A lot of states have banned styrofoam, but not because of the body stuff. You guys have any questions? Feel free to post those. We use things like polyethylene glycol, which is in like Wendy's Frosties. It's also what they use to clean out your bowel before a colonoscopy. So that's kind of awesome. And propylethylene is about 1 step from antifreeze. I thought that was bullcrap, but then I had to do research for a patient with leukemia, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. And then what about brominated things? So we talked a little bit about the chemicals that make people dumb and fat in America. Well, those things are banned in every other country, right? And in fact, brominated things, like brominated vegetable oil, brominated bread, which we've been doing for the last 100 years, it gives you the ability to make bread whiter and fluffier and make a little tiny bit more profit on it, it's actually banned in countries. Well, it's banned in all the other countries, but it's so bad that, like in Singapore, I read that you can get a 12-year prison sentence and a $500,000 fine for making brominated bread products. But brominated vegetable oil, that's in like chips, and that's in like Mountain Dew. So the reason brominated things are so bad is because bromine is a halide like iodine, and it'll bind to those receptors, and then your labs look great, but you are obviously hypothyroid. And the thing that drives reproduction, fertility, brain function, memory, growth, development is thyroid. Every single cell. And so if you brominate things, you make people dumb and fat. And if they get really dumb and fat, they got to move to the south where they're smart and skinny. Okay, we'll leave that. Not the good people in the South. Those other people in the South. Not you guys. Alright, so Brianna says, I have had a colonoscopy. Well, thank you for sharing that, Brianna. I was going to ask how many people had cameras in their butt before, but you already answered that. The prep stuff that is prescribed almost killed you, huh? That's poison. Yeah, it's propylethylene glycol. It's plastic fake sugar. It's pretty bad. So, yeah, that's not so great. They should come out with... Now, what would be interesting is if anybody knows a non-toxic version of that. There's got to be something like that that'll clean you out that's non-toxic. I would think of like a magnesium with like a bentonite clay and something else. I haven't thought about that. Although, a patient the other day asked me if you can inoculate yourself to cancer by eating cancer. So if, kind of like the way vaccines work, if you take a virus, kill it, and then inject it in somebody, and then their body basically reacts to it, they create antibodies to it, could we take different cancers, grind it up, and add it to your smoothie, and then your body makes antibodies to it? It seems ridiculous, but I bet you in a few years that's what we do. I asked the same thing to my genetics professor about reverse DNA viruses. Why don't we edit those to make them what we want, and then inject them in people, and then rewrite human DNA? But that's what they do now with biomedical engineering. They do that now. So, if you guys start feeding, if you make like a little cancer food thing to feed to people, let me know. So Brianna says, isn't it rogue cells? Yeah, but they are. They're rogue cells that your T cells should be able to identify and get rid of. So your immune system should identify those and fix it, right? It's actually a mutation of the DNA. So DNA polymerase edits out those mutations. So now the last thing I want to mention is the biggest nemesis, and that is monosodium glutamate. We probably talked about that before, but MSG is horribly, horribly toxic. So I posted on Facebook that it's 8,000%, or decreases brain growth by, or brain neurite growth by 8,000% according to that study in 2010. And someone on Facebook called me a liar, which I love, because then I have to do more research, and then I have to like overwhelm them with a whole bunch of research that proves I know what the hell I'm talking about. Because I usually don't post nonsense, although in all these years there's been 2 things I had to pull down where I was wrong. I got suckered in to someone's post, and I was just like, oh, this seems real, and I didn't do my fact checking. It's bad, so yeah. But they called bullcrap on that. So I did the research, and MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they actually said it's far worse than that. That once MSG, or monosodium glutamate, crosses the blood-brain barrier, it causes instant brain cell death. It literally kills our brain cells. So it's like, oh, all these years growing up, your parents are like, oh, don't smoke pot, it kills your brain cells. But eat all this crap that has MSG in it that guarantees it'll kill your brain cells. So that's a really funny thing is 2006, the American diet became the leading cause of death over smoking. Leading cause of death over smoking. It was now healthier for school children to smoke cigarettes than to eat like an American. Then the World Health Organization came out a couple years ago, and they said that American processed meat is more likely to cause cancer than smoking cigarettes. So now that bologna, the pepperoni, the lunch meat, those Lunchables are more likely to cause your kid to have cancer than smoking cigarettes. Think about that. That's why I let my kids smoke cigarettes and I feed them vegetarian. That's messed up. My whole life I grew up. Cigarettes cause cancer. Cigarettes. And now the crap that they feed me at school, lecturing me about those cigarettes, is what will cause you a greater likelihood of having cancer. That's some bullcrap. Alright. Well, man, the time flies. Does it fly for you guys? I'm telling you, I feel like I just started talking, and that's why when I do lectures, they're always like, oh, can you lecture for 45 minutes? No, I can't. I can't possibly lecture for that short of time. That's why I love when I lecture at seminars, like 8 hours, 12 hours. Oh, I'm in my zone. I can lecture 12 hours, cover 700 slides, and feel just like smooth about that. So, yeah, time flies. All right. So, please share this with your friends and family. Please like this if you like it. If you don't like it, still like it. And then, at some point, when my genetics gets done, we'll cover the genetics. We'll cover my genetics. But at this point, good Lord, I don't know when this thing is coming back. I know my patients, we cover their genetics. That's one of the services that we do at our clinic is people that get 23andMe, we'll go over their back into their report that they don't get to see, and we'll talk about all those problems and all those issues, and kind of basically encourages them to do what they're supposed to be doing. But good Lord, I'm telling you, I probably have extra genes. Probably have some extra powers. Is dad jokes a power? I think dad jokes is a power. I have that. So, my patients were getting them in less than 6 weeks. So, that's kind of crazy. I don't know. All right. So, thank you guys for joining. If you guys have questions, please post those on there. If you guys have suggestions for other people, great. This whole forum is for you guys, right? So, you guys helping you guys is awesome, which I don't know if you guys have ever visited Dr. G's Neighborhood on Facebook. That's a wonderful resource. Amy set that up. And that's a great place for you to post questions for other people that have been down that same journey that you're going to kind of like take that weight off of you. You don't have to figure this stuff out. My job is to figure it out, and then I deal with that with patients, and then other people that have been through it, they help them figure it out, and it's a wonderful way of getting your hand held through the whole process, so it's not that traumatic, it's not that overwhelming, it is doable. We can get through this. Basically, we can be not American in America and be healthier, happier, and more hormonally balanced than our friends and family are. And then when we tell them, oh, what you're going to do is do this, they're like, no, I'm not doing that. I'll do anything but change what I eat and exercise. So, they'll drink poison, feel sick, and eventually when it gets too bad, then they'll make changes. So, all right. Thank you guys for joining us. Another week. I think we're episode 87. Thank you, Amy, for posting that. That's awesome. And thank you so much for creating that. It's a wonderful resource for a lot of people. If you guys have ideas for more shows while we're waiting for my genetics, feel free to post that. I know someone said something about osteoporosis, but it's just eat more dairy. That's how you solve it, right? All right. So, yeah, we talked about the Frax tool too. Lots of good ideas. All right. Bye, you guys. See you next week. Have a good week. Ooh, that didn't work.